Hello, everybody. Joining from all points, Wales and Southwest. Welcome to, for once, a sunny Wednesday morning. I haven't said that for week after week after week, so it's lovely to have a little bit of blue sky and something that makes us think more of holidays, to be honest, with this lovely sunshine. Wonderful that so many of you have joined us today for this morning's Zoom presentation. And is it because Hurtigruten probably has the strangest name in travel? Could be. But to be honest, is it because Mark, you've never heard Mark, your presentation? Could be. But to be fair, I think more than anything, it's because you probably heard of Hurtigruten, but don't fully understand what they do, what their ship's like, where they go. And so I think that's why so many of you are with us this morning. So I know you're going to enjoy it. I know, not sadly from personal experience, but experience of a lot of our staff who've been lucky enough to experience Hurtigruten and had such an amazing time, that you'll thoroughly enjoy this presentation this morning. And no doubt we'll be left champing at the bit to come in and book once Mark's given you some pearls of wisdom. As ever with these things, they are put on 100% for you and you alone. So please, if there's anything that Mark says during his presentation that sort of spurs a question, if there's anything he doesn't say and you think, oh, I'd love to know the answer to that, then just tap your screen, put it in the chat, and I will ask Mark any of the questions you raise at the end, and we will get to the bottom of anything. Extra points if anybody can trip him up with a really tricky question this morning, that would be brilliant. But please make sure that you ask away anything that you want to know about Hurtigruten. It's a great opportunity with an expert that we've got this morning with Mark. So without further ado, Mark, I will hand over to you.
Thank you, Miles. Well, thank you very much for the rather impressive introduction there. And yeah, you will probably more than likely trip me up at some point, because there's such a lot to talk about, and obviously we don't have all the time to talk about it, but hopefully what I'll be able to do is just answer some of the questions and some of the ideas about Hurtigruten. And as Miles said, we are a little bit unique, we are unusual, but we're very proud of that. And we're very proud of our heritage. We're very proud that we offer something that's completely unique and different. So the image in front of you will hopefully whet the appetite a little bit. Like many of you, none of us have travelled for so many months that we're all desperate to get back and experience opportunities and destinations and images that you can see in front of you. So I wanted to do a little bit more than just me talk about this incredible voyage, but also just whet the appetite a little bit with a video that will hopefully just set us on our way up the Norwegian coast this morning.
Oh, just wait a minute, I've got this book now. I told you I'd have this at 11.
Oh, audio.
I'm getting no sound, Mark. I don't know if there's sound with the video.
Let me just bear with me, Miles, thank you. Technology, don't you just love it? Try it again. Let me know if this works.
Perfect.
Yep.
hopefully you can all hear me okay. Miles, if you're still there, or Amanda, if you're still there, hopefully you can all hear me.
Yeah, hear you perfectly.
Perfectly, great stuff. Thank you for that. It was obviously a bit of a glitch with the mic, with the sound. However, hopefully it gives you a bit of an idea of, certainly during the winter, what a Hurtigruten voyage is about, and we can talk about that in a little bit more depth later. But we are unusual. Say we don't class ourselves really as a cruise line in the traditional sense of the words that you might think of cruise. We are very different. We're also not what some people term us as a ferry. We're very much of a hybrid, and we term it as a voyage. And we're a voyage with a huge amount of history and heritage. We were first established back in 1893 by the gentleman you can see on the top left there, Captain Richard With, a very proud Norwegian seafaring gentleman. And he set sail on, he set up the Hurtigruten company back in 1893 on a ship called Vesteralen. And he basically wanted to run a service along the Norwegian coast from Trondheim to Hammerfest up the Norwegian coast, really to service the coast, because at that time, of course, 128 odd years ago, getting around was incredibly difficult. So he started a service which is effectively called the express route, and in Norwegian that is Hurtigruten. So that's where the Hurtigruten name comes from, express routes, and that was the quickest way to get around up and down the Norwegian coast. And if you fast forward 127, nearly 128 years time, we are a company that still is very much thriving. We are going in two slightly different distinctive directions now. The Hurtigruten route, or as we call it, the Hurtigruten Norwegian Coastal Express, is what we're going to predominantly talk about today. But we also have a very much growing number of fleet and ships in our Hurtigruten Expeditions fleet as well, which we can talk about maybe at another time, but I'll cover briefly at the end of it. But they're two very distinctive experiences. They're both very unique in their own way. They're both immersed in a huge amount of heritage. Certainly the Norwegian Coastal Express is very much part and parcel of that 128-year history that has been established, with the ships sailing up and down the coast for many, many years, obviously incorporating world wars and numerous, no doubt, pandemics in the past. We've managed to sail our way through these years, and we're still very much an integral part of the Norwegian history and the Norwegian culture. When you're sailing certainly in polar regions, you need to know what you're doing as well. So from a safety and a seafaring aspect, we are certainly experts. But the voyages, whether you go on a Hurtigruten expedition or a coastal voyage, they are what we term as educational. So we like people to learn about where we go. There's lots of different aspects of that and in engagements, and we find lots of clients that come with us are doing so because they want to learn about the destinations they're going to. They're not necessarily wanting to sit on a beach and just recuperate. This is very much about destination immersion and learning about where you go, and all different kinds of aspects of coming back a little bit more educated. The ships are all very, very comfortable. They are incredibly warm and friendly, but it's not always about the ship. We are very proud of our ships, and you'll see, actual fact, they are more than comfortable to keep you warm and safe as we go along the trip. But also, of course, it's about the destinations. So we use the ship to take you to the places that we know that you want to explore. And on board our ships, again, unlike many cruise lines, it's very informal. There's no formal dress code. The thing I always say to people, the only thing that you really need to take with you is a good pair of walking boots. And fleeces and walking trousers is very much the attire that you are required. So there's no formality on the ships. There's no West End shows. There's not casinos. This is about very much the outdoor. The places we visit are the attractions, and that's the entertainment. So it's a very different experience. We do attract a lot of people that have been on cruises before, because it is a ship that sails from port to port to port, and obviously that has a great similarity to a traditional cruise. But as you'll see in the next couple of slides, why we are different, that anybody that has cruised before will understand the differences. But we also attract a lot of people that have never been on a cruise, because we don't have a lot of things that are associated with big cruise ships. The ships are much smaller, they're informal, there's none of the sort of the razzmatazz glitz and stuff, which a lot of people are put off by. So we attract cruisers and non-cruisers. But we'll predominantly just talk about the iconic Hurtigruten route, which is the route that has been ploughed those waters for so many years by our company. It is an integral part of the Norwegian culture. If you want to go to Norway, this is absolutely the best way of seeing the country as an experience, let alone the coast, which is absolutely one of the world's finest voyages. But this is a great way of seeing a magnificent country that actually is much bigger than a lot of people realise. Obviously predominantly coastal, and to be able to bob and weave up the Norwegian coast in and out of this most spectacular countryside and fields and landscape is a wonderful, wonderful way to explore a wonderful country. And you also get such an integral connection with the Norwegian people and the Norwegian culture. It really does give you a full experience. So the Hurtigruten route is year-round. We sail from Bergen in the south there, that hopefully you can see on the map. And we sail all the way up the Norwegian coast, over the Arctic Circle, and all the way around to the Russian border. So we sail from Bergen to Kirkenes, where the ship turns round. And we visit all 34 ports that you can see on the map. So 34 ports our ships visit, 22 of which are within the Arctic Circle. Just to give you some bearings, some geography, if you go to Kirkenes, it's actually further east than Istanbul. So not only do you go north, but you also veer a long way east, right to the Russian border as well. So you're going up into the Barents Sea and some really pretty impressive Arctic parts of our beautiful planet. The ports are very, very small, medium and large. There's a real combination of beautiful, tiny little fishing villages going to medium and larger ports and towns. The ships will sail in there from 15 minutes. They'll stop, they'll make their stop, they'll turn around, and then they'll sail away again. And a lot of people, until you actually experience it and do it yourself, you kind of don't understand when it says, well, we won't have enough time to get off and explore. And in some of the ports, you won't. But to be honest with you, there's not a lot in these little ports. It's where they are. And it's the beautiful surroundings that these ports are actually clinging to the sides of fields as you go up the coast. So the ships, there is plenty of other times, obviously, for some of the bigger ports where you get 2-3 hours to go off and have a wander around or take an excursion as well. So the ships are still what we class as working. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So these ships are working along the coast. They are delivering the post, they're delivering cargo and freight, they're delivering and taking local Norwegian clients and guests all up and down the coast, and they're bobbing off and getting on and off. So the ships are a working service, which incorporates nighttime visits as well. So sometimes you will find that throughout the night you'll maybe woken up as you feel the ship shudder a little bit as she pulls into port, because she's a working ship and she will be visiting these little ports and the major ports as we go up. So as you work your way north, we are averaging about 3 to 4 different ports within every 24 hours. So some of the ports will be there very short, and other times you'll be there much longer. The voyage from Bergen to Kirkenes takes 7 days. So it's 34 ports during the day and night to visit in a 7-day voyage. The southbound voyage is 6 days. But what we find is 99% of certainly British guests and international guests will do the classic round voyage. So that literally is join the ship in Bergen, 34 ports north, you turn around, you do 34 ports back south. So effectively you visit each port twice, and each port you'll do during the day and during the night as well. So if you miss a port on the voyage going north, you will have the chance, because maybe it's in the middle of the night, you'll have the chance to visit the port in the day during the southbound voyage. So it really is a massively, massively wonderful trip to get to see some of these ports. So there's a different, you basically get to see the same ports in each direction, but at different times of the day. So now you can probably understand, for those of you who might have cruised, why immediately we class ourselves as something that isn't, you would normally put yourself as a traditional cruise of bobbing up to the ship, to the port in the morning, staying there all day and then sailing at night. The ship is weaving its way north, delivering all the different bits and bobs that we have. So the coastal fleet of ships themselves, there are now 7 ships that are working the coast. It's not a daily service anymore. It's averaging about every other day, every 3 days that we sail. The ships all look, as you can see on the screen, they're not huge. They take about 400 guests, but very, very comfortably. You will have, as you find, if you were to sail with us, that you might get some locals that get on and off between ports, and suddenly you might find a family that are going up to visit the grandparents or going to university or something. So there is the local sort of turnover of guests as well. But we find that out of most sailings, 90% of guests on board are now international. Many British clients, but we also get a lot of Germans and obviously other Nordics and Scandinavian countries and Australians as well. The names of the ships also give you a bit of an insight into us as a company. Kong Harald is the Norwegian king. Polaris means polar light. Nordlis, northern light. Nord Norge, northern Norway. MS Richard Will is obviously named after our founder. Nordkapp is North Cape, and MS Vesteralen, which is the ship that you can see on the top right there, which actually is a part of Norway. It's actually a district of Norway as well. So these ships were built back in the sort of 2016. They have all been refurbished during 2019 and 2020, but they were very much designed for the Norwegian coast. These ships aren't ships that suddenly go down to the Caribbean during the winter and then come back up to the summer. These ships are ploughing the coastal route year round and were very much designed, and the crews were chosen for this particular route, for this particular experience. On board, you have an expedition team, which I'll talk about in a little bit later. But you certainly get everything on board that you'd ever need, and you'd be incredibly comfortable. You know, there's a couple of restaurants, there's a shop, there's a gymnasium on there if you fancied a bit of a workout or a run on a treadmill. There's a couple of lounges, great lounges with great floor-to-ceiling windows, so you can take in this incredible scenery. So the ships have got everything that you need on board by far. They're very, very comfortable, but as I say, you have to understand and be appreciative. These are traditional huge cruise ships that have everything that's, that you would normally associate with them, but they are incredibly comfortable. Just talking very quickly about the actual service itself, people kind of say, well, what do you mean by the working ships? Well, we actually as a company have to tender with the Norwegian government every 8 years to run the service along the coast. It's an integral part of the way of life of Norway. So that also incorporates an agreement with the Norwegian Postal Office, the Postal Service, where we actually deliver the post and the packages for the Norwegian Postal Service and fly their flag proudly on the aft of the ship as well, as you can see. So the ships are literally working their way north. As I said always, as I said before, we have about 90%, 95% of guests on board are international travellers doing it because it's such an iconic voyage. Obviously, in this day and age of international jet travel, the locals can fly pretty easily within domestic Norway. But there's still a need for some of these really remote places to be serviced. And therefore, even throughout the last 12 months, our ships have been running along the coastal service, delivering and servicing these really tiny ports of Norway, and doing a vital service indeed, to places that actually you can't get to by road as well. So we are an integral part of this. But, you know, don't think that you're going to be wandering the ship with men in boiler suits and, you know, oily rags around their hands and stuff. This isn't the point. As a client and as a guest, you kind of observe what they're going on. And some of my personal favourite times is just, you know, grab a coffee and go and stand out on deck and watch what they're going to be bringing on board or taking off the ship, delivering to these tiny ports and places. So it's really a very, very different and iconic experience, and something that you need to understand as part of it. And many guests that we have travelling with us absolutely love and understand that this is something that's very different and a very iconic voyage. Just to give you a couple of images to give you a feel of how the ships look. They're very Scandinavian, as you can appreciate. There's lots of cool sort of Scandinavian modernist kind of feel. Lots of nice sort of warm shades of different timber and woods, and obviously a connection with the nature outside. There's also obviously a connection with Norwegian heritage, so there's lots of artifacts and furniture, etc., with the Norwegian culture and the Norwegian history as well. So, as you can see, they're very, very comfortable ships. We don't sell them as luxury because they're not, but I would say, actual fact, they exceed most people's expectations of when they're going on board. If any of you have ever stayed at a Radisson Blu hotel or a Scandic hotel, they're a very, very similar standard. So if I were pushed to put a star rating on it, I'd probably say they're a very, very comfortable 4-star hotel experience. And as I say, they are immaculately clean, beautifully warm, very friendly, and a very homely feel on board the ships, and somewhere that you will absolutely be very comfortable as you head north up into the Arctic Circle. The cabins are cabins. You know, again, we make no bones about them. They are very, very comfortable. They're very warm. There's everything that you have in there that is required. Everyone has their own private bathroom or shower room. They're cleaned every day. It has everything that you might need. You can go from a very basic inside cabin that I've stayed in myself, and in actual fact was more than sufficient to do what you needed it to do. The beds, I have to say, I've been on many different cruises and ships over the years. As an individual night's sleep, these beds and the duvets and the quilts on board are actually as comfortable as I've ever had. So I have, in terms of having a very comfortable place to sleep, these cabins absolutely do that. If you wanted to have a little bit more room or up on a higher deck, then of course we have the Arctic Superior cabins, which you can see on the left there, the bottom left, that have views without any obstructions. Or if you wanted to, we do have a few suites on board the ship as well, which will give you even more space. But there are no balconies on these ships, mainly because if you're going into Arctic winter, up in the high Arctic, you probably wouldn't want to be standing on a balcony for too much time. But there's plenty of easy access deck. But as I say, these ships are very small. They're easy to get around. It's never too far to go anywhere. And as I say, the cabins do have the facility, as you can see in some of them, to be turned into sitting areas during the day. So they're very, very flexible and comfortable. The one thing I just wanted to also talk about here was our commitment and our environmental credentials. We absolutely have set the bar as high as you can possibly get within the environmental aspect. You know, the whole world, we understand that the world is a fragile place, and in particular the sea. And about 4 years ago, we really set our flag out and said to people, okay, we need to really start changing the way in which we run the company. So all of our coastal ships were due to, in the last 12 months, have start to be upgraded to have battery power and shore power connections and biofuel, which is effectively biofuel. If you don't know, it's a sort of combination of marine, agricultural and forest waste, incredibly environmentally friendly. Unfortunately, due to COVID, that a lot of stuff's been pushed back, but we have committed that all 7 ships will be having these upgrades by 2023. There is a new international law coming in that the Norwegian government have said by 2025, I think it is, all ships must have a certain level of environmentally friendly very friendly ships. So anybody going to Norway in the coming years really have to have their environmental credentials on point. And we aim to reduce our CO2 emissions by 25%. 3 of the ships will be full hybrid as well, so they'll be battery powered. And back in 2018, the gentleman you can see in front of you is our CEO, Daniel, and he announced as our 125th anniversary, we were going to go plastic free. So you won't find any single-use plastic on board any of our ships. All of the straws have gone, and that's something that we now do fleet-wide across the coastal and the expedition fleet. And as guests, you can do your bit as well. We have different opportunities on board to do beach cleans if you wanted to. We have citizen science programs where there's things like whale watching and an understanding of marine ornithology. We also have a green stay program. So if you decide not to have your cabin cleaned that particular day, which obviously saves on energy and it saves on detergents, we as a company will make a contribution to the Hurtigruten Foundation, which then goes off and supports various global environmental projects across the world. So we can all play our part, and we are absolutely setting the bar high on this and way ahead of many other cruise or shipping companies, passenger shipping companies. The expedition team on board, you usually find there's about 3 or 4 of them on board. They are predominantly Scandinavians, all speak impeccable English, as you would expect, but they are effectively there to do lectures. They talk about all different aspects of Norwegian culture. You might find one of them is a photographer expert, another one is an ornithologist, another one might have some history experience. They'll also take you on hikes of varying levels. If it's a gentle stroll, or if you wanted to hike to the top of a Norwegian mountain, it's there if you wanted to do it. But this is where we really do embrace that sort of educational aspect of the voyage. So there will be on board things like storytelling and demonstrations on the desk. But it's a very soft education. This isn't high academia. This is about coming back and learning about where we've been and what kind of experiences you've got. But very often, I talk to guests that come back and say, we just weren't expecting to meet such a lovely bunch of people that made us so welcome. We learned so much. These are one of our absolute secret parts of the journey. So the expedition team is there to be there. They're not an entertainment team. They don't turn into clowns at 5 o'clock at night and things. They are very much experts in their field, and as I say, they are there to help you understand and learn about the area that we go to if you wish. This isn't forced. This is about all if you wish. And excursions, we have a whole range of excursions at the coast. It can be anything from a very traditional fishing village to things like Trondheim Cathedral. One of my personal favourites, we had a fantastic hike in Bodø, where we hiked about 2 hours up a mountain, and we were able to look over the Lofoten Islands, and we saw 3 or 4 seagulls. So there's all kinds of various opportunities to go and to get off the ships and experience it, because all of the excursions are built around the time you are in port. So it does give you the opportunity to get off the ship. So don't feel that you are confined to the ships, because that's not the point of it. We want you off and experiencing the places that we go to. Food. The food is exceptional, I have to say. It is an incredibly high standard, and again, something that a lot of people are very surprised at the quality of the food. If we were talking probably 10 years ago, it would have been very limited. I think they pretty much just went through the phase of just serving you food, whereas now we realise that there's a high level of demand from international travellers to be fed well, and rightly so. So we have our Norwegian Coastal Kitchen that produces excellent meals and quality food. Breakfast is a buffet, breakfast and lunch. Huge amounts of selection of foods and for your breakfast and lunch. And then dinner is predominantly 3- and 4-course sit-down set menu. You know, if there's a course that you don't particularly like, then there is an alternative as well. And a lot of it is freshly and locally sourced. Obviously, as we sail up the coast, we are picking up a lot of products, a lot of goods, especially obviously seafood, from local farmers and from local fishermen as we sail up the coast. And part of our sustainability commitment is we actually purchase a lot of those crabs and the seafood from the communities we sail along, and we present them. And of course, that is a great experience for any of you that want to try some local seafood, etc. as well. So it's very sustainable, beautifully presented. If any of you have any dietary requirements, we are very, very well tuned to be offering everyone, whether it be vegan or gluten-free. There's plenty of opportunity there to do that. Just a quick note on the price of alcohol, because we Brits, we like a glass of beer or a glass of wine on our holidays. Norway is an expensive place to go. The cost of drink on board the ships is expensive. You know, we don't hide away from that at all. A beer can be £7 or £8 for a bottle, and a bottle of wine can be from £40 and up. So, you know, I wouldn't go there expecting, and it's not something that you can think it's sort of tequila time sailing out of Miami. That's not that experience. But when you get there, after a lovely day ashore and feeling, you know, the fresh air of this Arctic coast, is nothing quite beats a nice glass of red wine. So just be aware of the cost of alcohol on board, and also general things like in the shop. Obviously, Norway is an expensive place to go to. So just be mindful of that and maybe budget a line if you want to. But really, it doesn't put a lot of people off because it's not that kind of experience or voyage, but it's obviously there if you wish. Just talking very quickly about the video that we started. Obviously, a lot of people think, why on earth would you want to go to Arctic Norway in the winter? I mean, ironically, obviously it's, but as a place and an experience, the ships are sailing up there year round, so the sea doesn't freeze. The ships are able to sail when obviously the sea conditions are suitable right throughout the winter months, and it is an incredible experience. It's very cold, very dark and atmospheric. The snow generally tends to hit just prior to Christmas generally. So if you're looking for a white sort of husky sledding experience, then really we find that the snow is with us by sort of December time. But really the main reason we go up there is the Northern Lights, and that's something that we really hang our hat on very proudly. We've been sailing obviously up there for so many years. We like to think that we know the best time and the reasons for why you can go and see the lights. And as I say, 22 of the ports are actually in the Arctic Circle, which effectively is the Aurora zone. So once you get up into that sort of Arctic area, you're heading into the Arctic zone. The Northern Lights seasons are October through to March. They can drift into September and April. I've seen them in April myself, and they were just as spectacular. But if you want to improve your chances of it, you really need to go when it's as dark and cold as possible. The ships are sailing at night, which of course they're sailing in really remote fjords. There's no artificial light. So it is a wonderful, wonderful place to be able to go and experience these magnificent Mother Nature's display. And what will happen, unlike many different sort of Northern Light trips where you're sort of sitting waiting, we say to people, go about your holiday, go about your voyage, go and do your shore excursions, go and have your dinner, go to bed. And then if the lights come out at 2 o'clock in the morning, we will absolutely make the announcement. So you put your warm coat on, your hats and your scarves, and up onto deck you come, and keep your fingers crossed that the Northern Lights are actually out and making their appearance. But to do that in a pitch black Arctic fjord at 3 o'clock in the morning is really quite special. And you'll find a lot of people absolutely blown away by it. And so it is a great way to do that. And we also, well, we're so confident that you're going to see them. If you do the 12-day voyage, the classic round voyage, we have a Northern Lights promise. So if the lights don't come out on the 12-day round voyage between October and March, we do give you the chance to go back and do a 6 or 7 day voyage free of charge, with that confidence that it happens. And pretty much every year, we have about 1%, 1 to 1.5% of people that don't see the lights and therefore claim. But I was looking at, well, that's 98, 99% of people that actually do see the light. So it is a great way to do it. And I'm pretty confident that if you take the 12-day lights at the 12-day voyage, at some point the lights will actually come out. Just very quickly, we have the demand to go to the Northern Lights is so significant that we actually have to charter our own aircraft. Normal scheduled services don't really service Bergen enough. So this coming winter, we are having 17 exclusive and direct flights from 9 regional airports from October 21 through to March 22. And that includes Bristol. I know that a lot of you good folks are down in the southwest. We have a Bristol service, but we also have Birmingham and Bournemouth as well, which is easily accessible. But in particular, obviously, and obviously why we talk so closely to Miles and the team, is the Bristol service. It's direct. We have 2 of them going in November and February. It's a return flight direct to Bergen. It's nice and convenient. I think it's just over a little bit shy of 2 hours direct flight, so it's nothing too strenuous. Take you from the airport direct to the ship. The 12-day classic round voyage, full board, breakfast, lunch and dinner, where you have a choice of where your cabin is, what time you'd like to dine. Coffee, tea is included, and Wi-Fi as well if you wanted to keep up to date on life back home. And it's leading in just over £2,000 for an outside cabin at the moment. So we think it offers incredibly good value. The other thing that we do, because Miles Morgan Travel is such a strong partner and associate of ours, we've said to them, okay, on those 2 particular Bristol sailings, we'll add onboard spend. So you can have a bottle of wine or 2 bottles of wine on our compliments with ourselves and Miles and the team. If you book before the end of May. If any of you on this call can't make a decision before the end of May, then we're quite happy to extend it for an additional week as well. It's a bit of a thank you for spending the time coming to and listening to me talk today. There's an additional week's spend. So it's about £90 on board spend that you can use, I was to say, buy a bottle of wine or take some gifts home, etc., or buy a couple of excursions. It's just a nice exclusive that I'm happy to extend in association with Miles and the team. Of course, winter is very cold. Flip side of that is summer, I'd love to say is very hot, but it's not. It's very much like our climate, and I akin it to Scotland, actually. It can be incredibly sunny, or it can be downright miserable in the summer months, but ultimately, we are attracted, a lot of people are attracted to go there because of the much longer days. When you get into the Arctic Circle, of course, you're getting 24 hours of daylight, which is a really weird experience to stand on deck at midnight and it's actually completely daylight. You get 24 hours of daylight sort of from middle of sort of early June through till late July. But of course, that does attract a great opportunity for wildlife, photography, and hiking. So it's almost a 2-trip experience. The reason why I've also just added in that slides map is that during the summer months, we actually make a little detour into 2 significant fields. So during the June to August, we go into, when we get to Aalesund, which is a really pretty town, during those summer months, we then take a right turn and we head up to Geiranger Field. And Geiranger Field is very, very well known, a stunningly big field. It's one of the big 5 Norwegian fields, and it's absolutely spectacular. So we go into those during those months. But then in September and October, we also do a little bit of a detour and go into a place called Geiranger Field. I think it's the way that the Norwegians pronounce it. And this is an incredible field. It's the one on the picture you can see below you. But the beauty of this is that the Hurtigruten ships are the biggest ships that can get in there. So if it's not a Hurtigruten ship, it's local, smaller fishing vessels that can go into there. So the bigger ships of the world can't get into the Geiranger Field, but we can. And we go along to this place called Urke, which is absolutely stunning. And literally the chap as you can see with his son or grandson with the fishing net at the bottom there, is absolutely idyllic. It's a very remote part of it, but it's certainly that's something a lot of people don't realise as part of the Norwegian Coastal Service. But during summer, I would absolutely encourage you to do it. It really is a beautiful, beautiful year round. The autumn and the spring months are just as good, but obviously you will just encounter slightly different weather conditions whether you go in those particular 2 other seasons as well. Just conscious of time, so I will crack on some of the highlights and some of the key parts. I mean, you'll visit 34 ports, so you know there's a whole range of places to see and go. Bergen in itself is obviously a fabulous city. You've also got Trondheim, which has got the National Cathedral. Bodø, as I said earlier, is where I did an incredible hike and is fabulous for the birds, and in particular the sea eagles. The Lofoten Islands, which aren't normally on the Norwegian sort of, most people that go to Norway don't normally go to the Lofoten Islands, but the ship does. So it has some really spectacular, it's almost Jurassic kind of mountain area. And within that, there is a place called Trollfjord, and Trollfjord is a very, very tight fjord, and subject to weather conditions and sea conditions, our ships can just squeeze in, and they squeeze in this Trollfjord that is actually pitch black water, and we go in with 1,000-foot cliffs either side, and we do a 180-degree turn and come back out. And we even do it at night at times during the winter, where the ship lights up the fjord with its floodlights and its spotlights, and it's a real highlight of the trip. We have a museum, the Hurtigruten Museum at Stokmarknes, which is worth a visit. Tromsø is very, very worth having a wander around and going up to the Arctic Cathedral, where during the winter we also have a midnight concert at the Arctic Cathedral, which I've done myself. And if the lights come out when you're out, the northern lights are out when you're above it, when you're actually at the cathedral and the music festival, it's a really special trip. And then of course we get the chance to visit the North Cape and turn around at Kirkenes, which is right at the Russian border. So you do have the chance to go and visit the border if that's something that you want to do as well. There's lots of highlights, and it's impossible to mention them all. And it's one of those journeys that you have to go and see, and you're constantly surprised by what is up that coast and the opportunities it is to get to experience it. And just a few sort of general images of what life could be like, and the kind of experiences and the kind of opportunities that the Coastal Express will offer you. It really does give you a great experience of Norway and the Norwegian way of life. Oh, I don't know what's going on there. So just wanted to very briefly talk about our expedition program as well. Hopefully you've given you a good understanding of what life is like on the Coastal Express. But what we have done very successful for a number of years, and we are definitely expanding, is our expedition program. So this is, we've now got, I think, 6 ships within the expedition fleet. So we are using our experience of sailing in Arctic waters to go elsewhere around the globe. And the Norwegians, as you know, are a great seafaring nation. So they love to explore and be pioneers and get out and go to various different places. So we have an expedition program that goes to all parts of the world. And as you saw from the video, it goes from a season down in Antarctica up to Alaska, this magnificent voyage through the Northwest Passage, Svalbard, Iceland, Greenland, etc. And also the British Isles, which I'll talk about briefly in a minute. But I just wanted to say to you what makes a slight difference to the expedition program rather than the Coastal Express. So the expedition program is very similar. You have your cabin, you have your breakfast, lunch and dinner. Wine and beer is included on an expedition voyage as well, which is a house wine or beer with breakfast, with lunch and dinner. If you are in one of our suites, you can eat in the a la carte restaurants as well. Coffee, tea is included, complimentary Wi-Fi. You also have an expedition jacket which you can take home with yourself, as well as a water bottle as well. And also all of our activities and excursions are included as well. There are some excursions which you have to pay a supplement for that are slightly unique. For example, in Antarctica, you have the chance to sleep overnight in a tent if you wish. That carries about a supplement of 250 odd pounds, but most experiences are included and activities included, as well as being able to get into the Zodiacs and the small landing craft and go and explore some of these magnificent places. And very quickly, just to wrap up before we finish, I just wanted to mention our expedition ship sailing from the UK. Clearly, there is a demand these days for people not really to want to go to airports, and I completely understand that. So we have introduced a ship that will be sailing from Dover, MS Maud, that you can see in the middle there. She, hopefully, fingers crossed, if the wind's in the right direction, and we all hope right, is going to be with us in July. And she's going to be based with us out of Dover, sailing year-round well into 2023. So if you didn't necessarily want to get onto a plane and go off and fly off, there is a ship that will be able to offer the British Isles, Norway, southern Scandinavia as well from Maud. Fridtjof Nansen is our newest ship. She is a hybrid ship. She is absolutely state-of-the-art technology-wise. So she has the ability to sail on battery power. She has no inside cabins. 50% of the ship is balcony. So this is the ship that really is setting the standard for the future. And she's sailing from Liverpool and Portsmouth on a couple of voyages next year. And then one of my personal favourites is MS Spitzbergen, and she's a beautiful little ship. She's only about 200 passengers, but she's sailing from Glasgow in 2022. And in actual fact, is almost sold out. She's been that popular to get up to the Hebrides as well. So if you're not keen on jumping on board a plane, but you'd like to experience a Hurtigruten expedition voyage, then you can do so very conveniently from a UK port, sailing from this summer onwards. And I think that just about brings my presentation to a bit of a close. I say I could potentially carry on talking for hours and hours. There's so much to talk about. And maybe at some point in the future, Miles will do me the honour of talking more about the expedition programme, but hopefully it's giving you a little bit of an insight into what Hurtigruten is all about. And I'm now open to any questions if I haven't covered them.
Crumbs, Mark. Where do you start with that? I think one of the things I always say, and anybody that's heard me talk about cruising before has heard me say that I firmly believe that I can find a cruise for every single person, and the right cruise is holiday heaven and the wrong cruise is holiday hell. That's always been my view on it, because you're stuck on this ship. If you love it, it's a dream. If you don't, it's not. And what's been wonderful for everybody to be on this presentation this morning is to see that Hurtigruten, and the word unique is often used and probably overused, but I think as far as Hurtigruten is concerned, the experience really is like no other. And so hopefully everybody on here says, that is just brilliant, just what we want to do. If it's put you off because actually you're somebody that likes a big evening show in the evening, multiple restaurants, that is not Hurtigruten. So actually, to be honest with you, I'm as delighted if you're put off as if you're excited about it, because that means we as a business will put you on the right ship and you'll have a great trip and a great holiday. Because as you can see, you know, in 40 minutes, however long Mark was talking, it is a very, very different experience to anything else that you can ever do, really. And if you combine that with some amazing experiences like Northern Lights, it's a very, very special trip. There are some questions. Can I kick off with one of mine? 34 ports of call, which is quite incredible. Could you give us just, I'll put you on the spot now. Can I just allow you to pick only 2 of your favorites and tell us, you know, from a personal perspective, why they're your favorites, what sort of thing you do when you're there, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, take your pick. I mean, there's I think I've mentioned Bodo, B-O-D-O, and it's right on the Arctic Circle. It's right on that edge before you, and you can actually see the Lofoten Islands 100 miles away if the day is clear, which is the next part of the journey, if you like. So it's giving you a taste that the next bit is on the horizon. But some of the scenery up there, and some of the, as I said, a walk we did a hike, and it wasn't spectacularly intense or anything, but it did get you up to a point on the top of this mountain. And I can't pronounce it because I'm Norwegian and I'm from Birmingham and I just don't want to go there. But it absolutely gave us a wonderful, wonderful experience. And when we were up there, the expedition team that took us up there, in their knapsacks, they had hot chocolate and snacks that we can sit, and we sat around a campfire and we saw seagulls, and it's really very, very magical. And when we got back to the ship, you know, really quite invigorated, tired but invigorated, and that's a personal highlight for me. The other one, I suppose, another on a personal experience. Myself and my wife, I took my wife on a voyage 3 years ago. We went from Tromsø. We were on the ship for a few days, and we went and did husky sledding outside of Tromsø on an island, and it was -12. We were wrapped up. They give you these, you know, these full body suits that keep you nice and snug. And we went on a husky ride for an hour right through the Norwegian wilderness, and it was -12, but it was beautiful sunlight. You know, you needed sunglasses on. I even got a suntan. And the funny thing about that, I mean, it was an incredible experience. But the guy that was mushing the sledge was from Norwich. You go all that way expecting to meet some guy from, the Sami, but this chap had been to Norway about 5 years ago and absolutely loved it. Fell in love with a local Norwegian girl, and moved. And this was his bag because he was blown away by it. So, you know, there's so many experiences and so many places up there. It's quite magical. It really is.
Yeah, and 34. You know, if you don't like the first one, you'll probably like one of the other 33.
Yeah.
Let me have a look at the questions that we've got for you. Cabins en suite. I think you talked about that, and I think you said they're all en suite.
They are now. We did have one ship that was with us last year, but she's been retired. That didn't, but we do now have all en suite.
Yeah. Okay. Teas and coffees. Are the teas and coffees in the cabins or available around the ship?
Yeah, they're predominantly. Well, it depends what grade of cabin you've got. I think if I'm right, it's an Arctic Superior and above. You get a kettle. But to be honest with you, there's two cafes on board most of the ships where you just go up and help yourself to teas and coffees. If you want anything a little bit more, I don't know, barista-wise in terms of a cappuccino or an espresso, then you have to pay a supplement for that. But I have to say, the sort of normal tea and coffee is more than sufficient to keep you going.
Yeah. Okay. Mobility on board, so mobility scooters in cabins and generally getting around the ship.
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly good. And I say surprisingly because, you know, these are ships that were built back in 2000, but I mean, they're not big ships, but the getting on and off the ship is literally the sort of the gangway, for want of a better word, is relatively shallow. I mean, it depends on the berthing, but I mean, we do find it's actually a very, very good trip for people that, you know, might be a bit wobbly on their feet, or they, you know, they are completely confined to a wheelchair. It's a very good trip because getting around the ship is easy. It's not big. The elevators go to all decks. We do have a number of accessible cabins, but they sell quickly. So my advice would be, if it's something that you wanted to do it well. And the crew are phenomenal. You know, there are no tenders. We're not tendered. The ship pulls up to every port, so it's not as though you're bobbing outside of a port and you've got to get a tender to and from, which can be a problem. It's all about. The only thing I would say possibly is during the dark winter months when it can get a little bit icy in some of the ports, but don't let it stop you. It's and you know, that's easy for me to say. But I would say, you know, it's something I wouldn't say, again, like you've said, Miles, you know, you've got to be honest with people and manage expectations. And I would say, this is a great trip. And I would encourage you, you know, even if you're a little bit, you know, wobbly on your feet or where you can find, it's still a lovely trip. And as long as you plan it, you're good.
But I think what you're saying is that the crew are great anyway. So, you know, they will look after you all the way anyway.
Yeah, they're just phenomenal. I mean, they're used to it.
Yeah. Okay. Barbara Field, you're a lady after my own heart. Can you bring a bottle of whiskey on board to drink?
The official answer is no.
That's not the answer you wanted, Barbara, or me.
That's the official answer.
Yeah, right. So that there is a possibility. Okay.
I wouldn't like to comment, honestly.
But it's not what Mark said in this presentation. Okay.
Correct. And it's not been recorded, is it?
Are there snacks available in between meals?
Not. I would say generally no. You will not be hungry. I mean, the food is and especially the buffets and the breakfasts are just huge. If you wanted, I don't know, a Danish or a snack, then you'd have to go and buy that from the little cafeteria. But outside of that, the expedition team do some onboard, and the chefs, they'll do some onboard tasting of crab and things like that as you go along. So there are sort of displays that you can have a taste, but I wouldn't say they're a snack. I would say the general rule is you can get a snack if you want to, but you probably won't need it.
No. Okay. Great question from Richard. Do you fly from Bristol for any of the summer sailings?
Not directly, unfortunately. We are reliant on any scheduled airlines or any scheduled flights. Bergen or Norway for anything outside of London is a little limited, sadly. That's why we have to charter. We have considered chartering during the summer months, but there's not really been the demand there has been for the Northern Lights. So Bristol, I think, if I'm right, I don't know, Miles, you might know better. Is KLM fly out of Bristol? Do they?
Yeah, so you can do it over Amsterdam. Yes, you can.
Amsterdam, or
so that's an option.
Yeah, or I think Cardiff via Amsterdam as well. Birmingham, I think, has got an Oslo service, I think, or no, I think it's a Copenhagen service. So sadly, we are reliant on scheduled airlines.
Okay. Would Maud still do the full Norwegian as far as Russia?
Not that we've got planned. At the moment, she only goes up to Honningsvag, so the North Cape, which really is primarily what most people want to do. And also, given the amount of time we've got sailing, actual sailing time, on Maud and on the expedition ships, because they're not working, you have longer time in ports. So on the moored itinerary on Norway, you won't visit the 34 ports. You have a selection of them, but you're in those ports longer. And there are some new ports in there, so it makes it different to the Coastal Express route. But you're really given the time, i.e. we have to work to a maximum of 15 days duration. We do find that getting further than Honningsvåg is outside of the capability really of the time. We have added one voyage that is a 22-day one next summer 22 that actually goes all the way up to Honningsvåg, but then it goes across to Svalbard as well. So it's a 3-week trip. But we thought we'll go to Svalbard rather than Kirkenes. So the answer to your question is more. It's North Cape that is the furthest you'll get to from Dover. If you want Kirkenes, you're going to have to go to Dover, to Bergen to do the non-coastal.
Yeah. Okay. With the mobility scooters, is if you only need them, you know, when you're off the ship potentially or going around the ship, can you actually have a standard cabin and have the mobility scooter stored somewhere else on board?
Yeah, I think they're open to that, to be fair. I don't see that being a problem. Actual fact, I've got a funny feeling that when I was on the ship, that was happening. I mean, the one thing the ships have got, because they were originally, they do have the capability to have 10 cars on board.
Yeah.
There are car decks. So to store a mobility scooter, you know, even in the car deck isn't a problem.
Yeah. I would imagine the mobility scooter is slightly smaller than a car, so we'd probably be plenty of room from that perspective. Yeah,
that's true. I don't think it'll be a problem. It's not something we do a lot, but I would think they would certainly look at it.
Yeah, okay. I think you've done very well. I think you've managed to chug your way through all the questions. Well done. So I hope everybody enjoyed that. It was absolutely fascinating, and I hope you'll all realise that this truly is, and I mentioned it earlier, that I often think the word unique is overused. In fact, it is overused, but I think with Hurtigruten, it's a fair one to use because there is simply no other cruise like it. It is as simple as that. It's very different. It's an incredible experience. And from a personal perspective, I think the ability to combine that with things like Northern Lights is just amazing. Absolutely amazing. And so if you are interested in any of these trips, you know, Mark kindly has put a special offer in for Miles Morgan Travel, which is brilliant. Then please do contact your shop and they can get in touch with Mark's team to arrange any bookings. If you think, as ever, any questions that you thought of that you wish you'd asked to me or to Mark about it, then please drop us a note. We can get in contact with him and get any answers you may want. But in the meantime, Mark, it was brilliant. Thanks very much. I really enjoyed it myself. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you everybody for joining.
Well, good to see you all.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Take care.